Hi class, this is Marshall Sponder, your professor for Social Media for the Arts, Spring 2018. And I'm here just to talk a little bit about Meltwater and Assessment 7. It turns out that I had to give everybody credit for it yesterday. Show you about my place here. Because what happened basically was most of the students couldn't do it, and only maybe 10% of all the 1,836 students had actually done it yet. So I would have been getting mails from about 1,600 students that hadn't done it, probably in the next week or two. Figured the best thing to do to spare myself and my graduate assistants and Rob, who also teaches section A6 and A7, to spare all of them and me this problem was to just give everybody credit for it, because there were some things that just aren't working yet. We are going to work with Meltwater to fix the problems, but the problems briefly that we've had come down to about three things. One, many students couldn't create dashboards, and the reason for that is that there was a limit of 25 dashboards per section login. That was quickly exceeded. Also, we had an API call limit, especially on Twitter, of 10,000 tweets a day. Some of the queries that students came up with were very general and, probably generated a couple of thousand calls per search. That's okay. I don't think we went into this knowing all of the things. When Meltwater gave me the use for my students of this platform, when I told them that we would have, maybe this many or more students, they didn't seem to be bothered about that. But then again, the devil's always in the details, and apparently now that I've been looking very closely at some of the user settings, I've seen some of those things that we've been running into were there. That this wasn't very well documented, and it also makes me, hesitant to add new things sometimes, because I know that with every new thing that I add into a course, there's always the possibility that things will go wrong with them. And that's happened before, and usually what I end up doing is just giving students credit for the work and until we can figure out a better way to do it. So there was that issue. And then I already saw, and I have not done looking at all the different logins, I already saw that one student overwrote the section login altogether and created their own account. Let's get some air here. And so as a consequence of all of that, we now have an issue where that one student basically took over the login for the section and linked their Instagram account too, as well as their Twitter account. So I don't even know how that happened. And that I need to understand that. So the upshot is that I want to get that all working and then let students just perhaps do Meltwater who hadn't done it as perhaps an extra credit assignment if needed. So there was that problem. And when you put all those problems together, you got a situation where you probably wouldn't, maybe it's just better to give everybody credit for it, which also means that if you're trying to upload to Meltwater, the assessment, not to me, not to Meltwater. If you're trying to upload the Meltwater assessment, what'll end up happening is now you won't be able to, because I already gave you credit for it. And if you had already done it, and I gave you, instead of 50 points, 60 points or whatever, I let you keep that. I didn't overwrite those. But for everybody else that didn't do it, I just gave them the 50 points. Now, for some who got 45 points, I'm going to go and change those all to 50. There probably are some because they didn't give me dashboards, or they didn't know how to do dashboards. So, and again, we only had 10% of the whole class that had done it. There was 90% that still hadn't done it yet. Okay, and then I think we had one other thing, and that is exporting the data. That didn't work for most students. Probably no student actually was able to do it. Some said they did, but most didn't. weren't able to do it. And on top of that, what we had was that even I couldn't do it. But at one point, when I was working my own account with them, I was able to do it, and that's what was in my questions. And my questions were basically geared around the book and the suggested textbook, which I adapted for this semester. So there you have it with Meltwater. Other things I could just talk about briefly are the midterms are over for most students, and if you didn't take it or some issue came up and it's a legitimate reason, there is a small extra credit assignment, but not for everybody. It's just for us, my GAs and I, to decide whether someone needs that. We do have some legitimate cases where it's needed. Now with the final that's coming up in about 2 months, you'll probably, most of you should be able to take that because you've all taken the onboarding quiz. But if you, for some reason, missed the midterm and didn't take the onboarding quiz, maybe you should take it now. And I did find, I took it myself and found I had a lot of problems with it the first. It took me 3 times, and I was documenting everything because I wanted to make sure, I wanted to make absolutely sure that really that there was, and I knew what to tell students to do because they were running into issues. And again, we can't do anything about proctor track. That's something that's mandated by Rutgers. So, you know, it's not that I want to do it, and it's not that any, you know, I wish there was another way, but my hands are tied with the proctor track. Nothing much else. We'll be looking at ways to continue to improve the course during the summer and into next fall. And with that, I just want to wish you all who are on break or to continue to have a great time. And we will be talking soon. Oh yes, and don't miss this great seagull. Cheers.